How does the bootloader work during OS startup? Imagine flipping a switch and your computer waking up ready to work. But what happens behind the scenes right after you turn it on? That's where the bootloader steps in. It's like the first worker to start the engine of your computer. When you power on your device, the firmware, which could be BIOS or UEFI, kicks things off. It checks the hardware, like the processor, memory, and storage devices, to make sure everything is ready. Then it looks for the bootloader on the storage device. On older computers with BIOS, this is usually found in the master boot record, a tiny part of the hard drive. Modern systems with UEFI look for special files in a dedicated partition. Once the firmware finds the bootloader, it loads it into the computer's memory and runs it. The bootloader then takes over by doing some initial setup, like configuring memory and hardware peripherals, so the system is ready for the operating system. Its main job is to find the operating system kernel, which is the core part of the OS. The bootloader loads this kernel into the main memory, along with any other essential files or drivers needed for the OS to run smoothly. After loading everything, the bootloader hands control over to the kernel. This is like passing the baton in a relay race. From there, the kernel begins its own startup process, mounting file systems and starting system services. Different operating systems have their own bootloaders. For example, Windows uses Boot Manager, which helps load Windows Vista and later versions. Linux systems often use Grub, which can support multiple operating systems and configurations. Mac computers use a bootloader called Bootloader. In embedded systems, which might not have BIOS or UEFI, the bootloader directly initializes hardware and loads the operating system or firmware. Sometimes there are two stages: a primary bootloader in read-only memory that does basic hardware setup, and a secondary one in flash memory that loads the OS. When you create bootable media like USB drives or installation disks, understanding how the bootloader works is key. You need to place the bootloader correctly so the firmware can find and execute it. If the bootloader isn't set up properly, the system won't start or install the OS. Modern bootloaders also include security features, like verifying digital signatures of the OS kernel, to prevent malicious code from loading during startup. So, in simple terms, the bootloader is the first software that runs after you turn on your device. It loads the operating system into memory and hands control over so your computer can fully start up and run. Without it, your system wouldn't know how to begin its startup journey.